I now call on Claudia Beamish to be followed by Alice McInnes.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Last autumn, when I was still convener of Equal Opportunities Committee, I had the pleasure of welcoming Baroness Vivian Stern, who is a senior research fellow at the International Centre for Prison Studies, to speak at our Women in the Parliament dinner. That evening, helped by her focused remarks about women in the justice system, it seemed to me there was a sense of collective determination not to allow the criminalisation of distress, as one researcher has called it, to continue any longer. All talked about the awaited report and hoped this would not just be the 11th report to gather dust. Last winter, I visited Cornton Vale and was shown around by the Governor, Theresa Medway. While recognising the commitment, like many others in the Chamber today, and the vision of the staff in that prison, I was very clear in my own mind that we had to move on. Move beyond a society that allows this criminalisation of distress to be eternally repeated and inadvertently passed on from generation to generation. This spring, only last week, I sat in the Strathclyde University Lecture Theatre, along with Mary Fee and many others, feeling inspired not just by the collective wisdom of those assembled, but by the palpable sense of anticipation as we awaited the report of Dame Eilish Angelini, Sheriff Daniel Scullion and Dr. Linda de Cassiter and their recommendations. Somehow it gave me a sense of optimism. After Dame Eilish had outlined the recommendations, the discussion seemed to crystallise into a sense of resolve. This had to be a watershed moment. While recognising there are a small number of women offenders who have to have a custodial sentence to protect society, this is a cultural shift in the making. A shift that must be developed into a systematic change as outlined in the Commission's report, breaking the pattern of reoffending by helping to create openings for women who have few or none. Many members have signed the motion which I lodged welcoming this report, and from today's debate it is obvious there is support almost across the Chamber. I would like, though, to distance myself from some of the remarks of David McCletchie, and no doubt many people in the Chamber will know which ones I'm alluding to. As parliamentarians, we can all try to support we all know of women constituents who are challenged by bewildering and fragmented lives on the edge, and I hope today's debate will coalesce our own determination, and I'm very heartened by hearing from so many of the other members who are in agreement on this, to drive forward this vision. And I welcome the Cabinet Secretary's invitation to members across the Chamber in this regard. This is both about breaking the cycle of reoffending and preventive work. In the words of the Justice Secretary, it is a whole system approach, bringing together police, courts, education, social services, and in his words today, working with women, working in a holistic and effective way. In the words of my colleague Graham Pearson, we need bespoke solutions. This is an old-fashioned word which means carefully made for each individual. This must be, indeed, a real menu of options. There are examples of this approach in my own region, such as Women in Focus project, which was launched by the Cabinet Secretary in 2010, and the service works with women offenders to reduce their levels of reoffending and reconviction and to help them lead fulfilling lives within the community. At the launch of this project, the Justice Secretary commented, if I may quote, that women need access to multiple services and forms of support in order to reduce reconviction rates. But the Commission itself notes that Scotland's public service landscape is unduly cluttered and fragmented. Much more needs to be done in this area. There are countless examples of young women falling into the justice system because of financial exclusion and inability to access housing and health services, and in particular mental health, and because of lack of family support. I disagree with Margaret Mitchell on the validity of short sentences for women in this sort of situation. And as many speakers have highlighted, this is indeed a gender issue. If the shift is to happen, we must put in place solutions systematically. I received an email today from the Scottish Quaker Community Justice Network urging us to support the thrust of this report. They said, any financial costs in making such changes will more than be met by the reduced social cost to society of finally breaking the cycle of most women's offending and reoffending and its collateral impact on their families. This is not all about costs, as we've heard from many other speakers. It is in part about how structures and support are organised. The executive summary of the Commission's report, as highlighted by Roderick Campbell, is also about prevention and early years, even though that was not within the remit. From my time many years ago working in a unit for pupils excluded from school, I still recall the arrest of one of my pupils who was stopped from going out of a supermarket with a frozen chicken under her jacket in the hope that the security guards would let her pass, thinking her to be heavily pregnant, even though she was actually only 14 years of age at the time.
The member needs to start winding up.
A girl forced to act as a young woman far too early, not responsibly and indeed not legally. But I come back to the phrase criminalisation of distress. Let's sort it out together for Scotland's girls and women who are on the edge. Thank you.